Good evening, you're with ET now. This is a power-packed edition of the India Development Debate, broadcasting from our news centers in Mumbai and Delhi. I'm Sandeep, Gurumurthi in Mumbai. With me in Delhi is my colleague and co-anchor Supriya, Shrinate. Straight to the big debate tonight then. Call it the biggest confidence vote for the NDA government, and it's coming from none other than Prime Minister Modi himself. In an interview to the Times of India, Modi has said he's fully confident of making a comeback with more seats than in 2014, talking at length about his government's priorities ahead of the 2019 polls. Modi says policies won't be tweaked to garner votes, making it clear that the focus will be on development and development alone. The Prime Minister hit out at mob lynching, saying that there cannot be any justification for such dastardly acts. On the controversial Rafale fighter jet deal, the PM hit out at the Congress party for politicizing what he calls an honest and transparent deal between two sovereign governments.
Indeed, on economic development, Modi gives a pat on his back, saying that big-ticket reforms like GST and other tax tweaks will boost the economy in the long run. He also rubbished the opposition propaganda with jobless growth, stating that his government has added more jobs than he had actually promised. According to Modi, the bluff on the Mahagathbandhan has been called with the NDA candidate's election as the deputy chair of the Rajya Sabha. On the India development debate this evening, we put to test the claims made by the Prime Minister over the state of the economy and polity in a run-up to an all-important 2019 elections. Very, very special guests joining us right now. I've got Hitesh Jain representing the BJP and Gaurav Vallabh representing the Congress party, Yogendra Yadav, founder and national president of Swaraj India political party, Sanjeev Srivastava, eminent political commentator, and Anand Ranganathan, scientist and author. Thanks each one of you for being with us. Let's begin with you, Mr. Yadav. From Rafale to jobs to lynching and the NRC politics, will you admit that the Prime Minister hasn't shied away from taking on some tough questions on some rather controversial topics?
That's one interpretation. I would say a generous interpretation, and as a sister channel of Times of India, I would expect you to take a very generous interpretation. But allow me to say that this is not an interview. I think interview is a word which we are misusing these days. An interview, from what I understand, but Sanjeev Srivastava is here, he would probably have a better understanding. An interview is when there is a to and fro. Someone asks me questions, I respond, someone gets back and says, won't you clarify this, things of that sort. I didn't find that at all. And I refuse to believe that Times of India journalists would not wish to ask a supplementary, they would wish to ask any follow-up questions. I've never heard of an interview in the world where there is no follow-up question. This is a pre-scripted FAQ. I mean, in earlier days, I used to call it FAQ. I anticipate these are the questions people want to ask me. I write those questions. I write the answers as well. I hand it over. That's a legitimate thing. It's useful. It should be put up on website. These are useful documents. But to call it an interview, to my mind, is a bit of a misnomer. I refuse to believe that someone would wish to do an interview with the Prime Minister of this country and would not ask one single question on agriculture, on rural situation, on agrarian crisis, on farmer suicides.
Okay, Yogendra Yadav, I take that point.
Come for a mention from what I know.
Sure.
And Rafale, why is that question dismissed in 4 sentences? I trust Times of India journalists with much more than this.
Okay, I take that point, and I'm going to let Sanjeev Srivastava come in on that. And Yogendra Yadav calls it more of an FAQ, less of an interview. For the benefit of our viewer, it was an email interview, which is what explains the fact that there were no follow-up questions. So
I would agree with Yogendra Yadav there, because an interview is an exchange. It's you ask supplementary questions, you ask more questions. So it was a very comprehensive answer statement by the Prime Minister on a set of questions emailed to him. Another interview was also released to a news agency which actually frankly survives on the patronage of the government. So it was very comprehensive. I really like this statement on the opposition alliance being opportunistic and that kind of a statement, a political slogan which the Prime Minister made, which was also the headline here, at least in the Delhi edition, and that he addressed every issue. But what is the point of addressing every issue if you are not asked a follow-up question or another couple of follow-up questions, couple of supplementaries? Then it becomes more engaging, and then it also becomes more convincing. This kind of has an antiseptic kind of a clinical look and feel to these interviews, which again come across less as an interview, more as Mr. Yadav said, essay, I would say more as an monologue or another speech interspersed with some questions. So it doesn't
that point,
convince
Sanjeev
you.
Srivastava and Yogendra Yadav, you know, FAQ or not, this is a form of modern political communication in this country. And the fact, in defense of the interview, one will have to admit that they've covered a wide sweep of issues from economy to polity and covered contentious issues as well in defense of the questions asked by Times of India. But I take your point, both of Yogendra Yadav and Sanjeev Srivastava, and I'm going to let Hitesh Jain respond to the points made there by both of them. Hitesh Jain, come in.
Well, on 28th May 2014, in his first message, Prime Minister said that he is going to directly communicate with the people. So, for last 4 years, what are we witnessing? He is communicating with people directly by using of technology and through social media. He has a PMO website, he has his app where he is taking the question directly. In fact, last month itself, he has taken the feedback on the member of parliaments, member of legislative assembly, their functioning, their different issues. So the Prime Minister is directly communicating with the people, and that is the most important point which we should not forget. Now, on the point which are been made by Mr. Yadav and Mr. Srivastava, while they may have their perspective, but another side of the story is that when the answers are clear, the answers are specific, the answers are direct, then you do not need a follow-up questions. Follow-up questions are required when people speak about Aloo ki factory and people speak about mobiles being manufactured from BHEL. Of course, when you speak in such language, there will be follow-up questions. But if your answers are clear, direct, you deal with all the issues. For example, mob lynching, employment, NRC, everything.
No, Hitesh, let me please come in.
Follow-up questions.
Okay, Hitesh, you know, you are a BJP spokesperson. You're also a lawyer par excellence. I'm not going to teach you law, just like how you should not be teaching me journalism. So interviews, you know, need follow-up questions. And one-way chat using communication and all technology at hold is not speaking directly, because you know what, how much ever everybody hates us, journalists ask tough questions, at least some of us do, and we expect our politicians to answer those questions. I take your point well noted, but don't teach me my tricks of trade. That's all that I will say to politicians, both you and the Congress. But let me take this across to Anand Ranganathan. And Anand Ranganathan, the Modi government's key poll planks were black money crackdown, job creation and bold economic reforms. At least that's what the Prime Minister promised to the people of this country in 2014. Now, talking about black money crackdown, in this interview particularly, the Prime Minister says it has been effective with 2.6 lakh shell companies forced to shut down and 3 lakh directorships being annulled. Is that an indicator of black money crackdown? Anand Ranganathan.
First of all, thanks very much, Supriya and Sandeep, for having me here. I think I would initially, if I may just, before answering your question, I think agree with Professor Yadav and Sanjeev there. I think not since William Pitt the Younger have we had a Prime Minister who's isolated himself so completely from direct questioning. Be that as it may, I think in retrospect, having looked at the scope and the scale of the interview, or quote unquote interview, I think Times of India did ask him tough questions. They didn't ask him a lot of questions that I would have asked him, but we have to do with what we've got. So I think the questions were tough, but again, as Professor Yadav and Sanjeev mentioned, that there's no point asking a tough question if you cannot follow it up with another subsidiary question. And as is normally the case, if you ask a tough question and the answer is provided, then perfunctorily you would have to ask a follow-up question. So, but as I said, we have to do with what we've got. The answers were, I would say, scripted. They were very factual, which wouldn't have been the case had somebody actually interviewed Mr. Modi directly. I mean, all the facts were there, and some of the facts are very impressive. no doubt about it. But on the specific cases of the economy and the black money, let me just give you 2 points and the questions that weren't asked. And if one has to really interview Mr. Modi, just 2 questions need to be asked. One is, what happened to your promise of the government has no business to be in business that you made in 2014? And the other one is, what happened to your other promise of maximum governance, minimum government? Now, both these are like flying pigs. You can, look up and see them flying away. The question was indeed asked about privatization, and this is where I think it was not an interview, because Mr. Modi said, obviously we have made so much progress in privatization, and here is where the follow-up question would have actually really exposed Mr. Modi, which is that whatever privatization we have seen, it is a public sector unit buying another shares into another public sector unit, be it LIC buying Coal India or LIC buying IDBI. So there is absolutely no privatization.
Sure.
Air India, of course, we know the whole story.
Sure.
So
I take that point, Anand Ranganathan, and we will talk specifically on privatization. Allow me to interrupt you there. I want to get opening comments from all the panelists. Before I come to you, Gaurav Vallabh, Yogendra, a response on his, let's get down to the specifics. Nature of the interview is one aspect to talk about, but let's get down about the substance of what was spoken about. Jobs, black money crackdown was one, jobs was another issue that the government and the Prime Minister spoke a lot about before coming to power. Now, let's talk about what is the explanation given by the government for their performance on the jobs front. The Prime Minister citing the EPFO payroll data to build a narrative of high level of job creation. But do you believe this EPFO data is an indicator of job creation or job formalization?
What the Prime Minister has said on job front is nothing new. This is the narrative his government has been trying to develop for the last 4 or 5 months. The Prime Minister wants me to believe that look at the EPFO increase. It must indicate more jobs. All right, although as we know, the real story is somewhat different. The simple story is that these are people who were earlier not on the rolls. They have now formally come on the rolls, which is a good thing for the government. But let's not call it new job altogether. Economists have discussed this. They have laid bare the claims of the government. But I find something else more interesting. Prime Minister wants me to speculate and say, these many people have taken mudra loans. They must have employed someone. Transport is growing. It must have meant a few more jobs. Prime Minister wants me to actively speculate with him. My question would be, sir, why do we need to speculate? There is something called a household survey of employment, which generated information every few months. My question to the Prime Minister of India would have been, sir, why did you stop that? And if for whatever reason you have junked your own Labour Bureau survey, there is someone else who is carrying out a similar survey. CMI is carrying out that survey, household survey. Because for employment, for my dear Prime Minister, the simple thing is you need not speculate. Go and ask in a household how many people have got new jobs, how many people have lost job. Count it, calculate it, come to a conclusion. There are mechanisms for doing it. Why is it that my Prime Minister does not want to consult any such existing mechanism? And why is it that he has prevented one such mechanism, which was the Government of India's own mechanism, Labour Bureau statistics? Why has he stopped it? So you stop a proper data from coming to me, and then you say, since we don't have data, let us sit down and speculate. Doesn't it stink? To my mind, it does stink. And a simple question would be, new surveys would very soon be coming. If this government if so many new jobs are being generated in this country, why is it that every single opinion survey, which otherwise may favor the BJP, says employment is the highest anxiety and concern in this country?
That's true. Employment is a tricky issue there. Exactly. No, that's an important point that you're raising, and it is going to be a burning issue in 2019, and it's an important point there. But I want to go across to Hitesh Jain. Gaurav Vallabh, I know you've been patient. I know everybody's been given a chance. I'm going to come to you next because I want you to respond to this and the larger point that I'm going to ask Hitesh Jain next. Just bear with us for a minute, Gaurav Vallabh. Hitesh Jain, on lack of bold economic reforms, The Prime Minister says nothing can be further from the truth. When specifically asked on strategic stake sale, the point that Anand Ranganathan also made earlier about privatization and how government needs to be less in the business of doing business, the Prime Minister cites the ETF route of disinvestment to point out that the government has raised 2 lakh crore rupees through disinvestment of public sector undertakings. Is that a bold economic reform? Because truth be told, that is the best way to bridge your fiscal deficit. That was a revenue earner. That was something that the government was required to do. Could that be an economic reform and to qualify it as bold?
Okay, I will answer your question in 2 parts. I will answer also on the question of bold economic reforms, but also on the job creation. You know, people have been speaking, fine, there is a perspective. Now, 3 different states, not the BJP states, the Karnataka state said that that jobs close to 58 lakhs were generated. West Bengal said jobs close to 63 lakhs have been created. Punjab is claiming jobs close to 40 lakhs have been created. Telangana is saying that jobs of 30 to 40 lakhs has been created. So if all the states are claiming, and these are not the BJP governed state, these are the opposition states, and couple of states are like they are vehemently opposed to the government. So they are claiming that there is a job creation in their states. So the fact is, today in this country, let us admit, there is not a specific data which can tell us on the what is happening on the creation of the job creation, and one has to look at the mudra. Now it's a different matter. One can agree, one can disagree, but the fact is nobody can agree, nobody can disagree with the fact that we do not have a proper data to understand, and in the absence of the lack of proper data, there is a misinformation. Of course, the job of the opposition has to, because that is their bogey, that is their point of campaign. For them, they have to raise it, they can raise it, but we will counter them with whatever the facts, and I think people have to judge that. That is point number 1. Second is on the bold economic reforms when we are talking. When we talk about bold economic reforms, now coming to the debate about privatization and the disinvestment. Now we saw what happened in the Air India disinvestment, and what was happening, how many people were ready to come ahead. Then the people, that there was a different thing, that the terms of the bidding and there was a lot of differences and all. But when you look at this privatization as against making the PSU functioning properly, we know what has happened in the LED bulb company case, where how we have been efficiently been able to manage and give an efficiently result. Now bold economic reforms, people should also discuss about in the bankruptcy code, the GST, the amendments made to the Specific Relief Act, the amendment made to the Negotiable Instrument Act, amendment made to the Arbitration and Conciliation Act, the introduction of the Commercial Code Bill, and the kind of reforms that you are seeing, the process that is being seen, also to address the bad NPS that were created during the regime. Now, you cannot look at economic reforms only on the basis of privatization.
Okay, I take that
from
point.
The whole of the multiple factors.
Okay, Hitesh, I take that point. You brought up the matter of NPA, and we'll debate that as well. Allow me to interrupt you, but because we're talking about bold economic reforms, and again, for the benefit of our viewers, our idea of bold economic reform will be different from, I'm sure, Yogendra Yadav's idea would be different from the BJP's idea. All we're trying to say is that what Times of India has espoused as bold economic reform is strategic stake sale of PSUs, having the, which Anand Ranganathan pointed as well, having the government not be in the business of running companies, privatized loss-making units, like we saw in the case of NDA 1, has not happened, and the government hasn't shown political will. But Gaurav Vallabh, where is the Congress party on it? I mean, would you have supported the government if they had moved aggressively on privatization? Would you have supported the government if they had moved aggressively on land reforms? Would you have supported the government if they had moved, aggressively on strategic stake sale? I mean, where is the Congress party on these so-called, what pink papers or business media likes to call bold economic reforms?
I would like to raise one issue. We were discussing about interview. It's a not interview, it's a Man Ki Baat. It's a purely Man Ki Baat, a monologue by the Prime Minister, because one point which I want to incorporate what Yogendra ji had mentioned, that if any journalist takes interview, he will put his name as a credit, which was missing in this interview also, first point. Second thing, lot of the issues he talked about jobs. See, jobs, there are two issues. he is quoting EPFO data. Now every company who is having 20 employees has to get himself registered with EPFO. Now if I am having 19 employees, no registration requirement. If I am putting one more employee, registration is required. So there the 20 new employees are going to be counted. So this is something, a basic error in the EPFO counting, because if you will add one employee, the EPFO will count 20 new employees. And second point, that there is a difference between formalization, there is a difference between the replacement of job and the addition of the job. So even the Niti Aayog is saying that we are in a severe underemployment crisis. So all the jobs which government is giving counting is a replacement job, not the additional job. Coming to the Mudra loan, 91% of the exposure, the average exposure of 91% of loans is 21,000 rupees. Now I am asking, in 21,000 rupees, how a person can start a new venture? Even starting a pakoda business is tough. Then coming to your specific question on the privatization. See how they had failed miserably in Air India. You know what is the reason? Because the deal was not structured in a right manner. That there is a basic inherent problems in the deal. Like, I will not give my fixed assets, I will give plane. RSS is saying that I will give okay sign only when there is an Indian buyer, and that too in the election year. So you have to take care that whenever you are privatizing something, then you have to privatize in a holistic manner. It's a strategic sales. It is not 5-10% you are selling. If somebody is putting money, he is going to take care of everything. Second point. Third point, he mentioned lot many things about economy. I just want to ask Honorable Prime Minister that now people.
No, Gaurav Vallabh, give me a minute. Gaurav Vallabh, give me a minute. We've got different topics covered. I have a follow-up to you. But I think Anand Ranganathan want to quickly come in and make a point there. So let's not jump topics. We've got specific topics that we are covering. Bear with me. Anand Ranganathan, if you can make your point very quickly so that I can move on to the next pointer that I have for the Congress party, and then we'll go to Yogendra Yadav. Go ahead.
Sure, very quickly, just two quick points. I think the thing about the jobs, I think the debate is nearly settled, and it's actually tilting more towards Mr. Modi, because with due respect to Professor Yadav, he's a politician, he's in politics right now, and he's probably not an economist, he's a political scientist, and the other person is a Congress spokesperson. If you look at unbiased economists like Anantha Nageshwaran, who's been a columnist for Mint, he has said that we may hate it, but the fact is that EPFO data shows that we are generating jobs. Now he says that every year 15 million Indians join the labor force, and EPFO data says we've been able to generate roughly 7 million jobs. So there is a shortfall there. As far I do agree with Professor Yadav that when you actually browbeat and tom the Mudra loan data, you have to be more specific. Now it's a shame, but I think it's nothing unusual that our government is like years behind data accumulation, collation, and actually bringing it on. The other 2 points I'd quickly like to make is that there were 2 questions which actually weren't asked, which should have been asked. Right. One was about demonetization, and I was surprised actually, because that was, I would say, one policy that
Anand Ranganathan, can I please Anand Ranganathan, can I please ask you to just bear with me, because I have a quick follow-up. Let's talk about issues that were asked instead of talking on those that weren't. Those weren't asked, the interview is over. Let me go across to Gaurav Vallabh, and Gaurav Vallabh, very quickly. When asked on whether the government was slow in recognizing the NPA problem, the Prime Minister asserted that the magnitude of the crisis took them by surprise and lashed out at the Congress for the innovation which he calls telephone banking. The rot, he says, began with you.
But Supriya, data doesn't support this argument. When we left the government in 2014, the NPA number was 2.5 lakh crore. Today it is nearing 11 lakh crore. And what is NPA, Supriya? If there is a 90 days past due, so why it is happening in the current last 4.5 years? The answer is very simple, because there is no private investment, the gross fixed capital formation is at lowest, the jobs are not coming up, the trade deficit is increasing, the fiscal deficits are, we are having having a problem in achieving that. The exports are at all-times low. For last
Gaurav
4 years,
Vallabh,
there is a negative growth in exports.
Gaurav, I like the way you're using
how
facts
this
in
can
this
be
debate.
possible?
But you don't misguide our viewers. You could say this, you can get away by saying this on any other channel, but not on ET Now, where you're saying that NP was 2.5 lakh crores when your government, demitted office, and now it is 8.5 lakh crores. When were these loans sanctioned, sir? I mean, everyone in this panel for sure knows. Please don't make such a point. But anyways, Hitesh Jain, the fact of the matter is, let's leave the politics aside. 4 years and 3 months into the tenure of this government, isn't it time we look for excuses beyond blame UPA?
Sandeep, can you please repeat your question?
I'm saying 4 years and 3 months into the tenure of this government, for how much longer are we going to blame the UPA for all that is wrong? And specifically with regard to the NPA crisis, you had four years to fix it.
Well, we are. The fact is, we are flagging the fact. We are flagging the fact that the problems, we inherited the problems of UPA, but we are not shying away from the solutions. We have come with the solution. IBC is the solution. Recently, the funds that is being set up by the finance minister's recent initiative is the solution. There is a day-to-day, if you will notice that for last 1.5 years, what the finance ministry is specifically doing is look at the issues of NPA and look at the ways and measures to look at the NPA. Even this the most actions such as Fugitive Economic Offenders Act and also stringent measures have been introduced. Now, when you will see the kind of, you had earlier Debt Recovery Tribunal, you had SURFACE, you had Companies Act, there are different problems as far as looking at the financial reforms are concerned. They have been bundled into one fact. So, when you are looking at the multiple measures that have been taken by the government, of course, we are saying that we have inherited the problem, but we are not shying away from dealing with the solutions. Now, also on the job front, I want to also bring in a very important aspect, and we are all aware in the commercial organization what is happening also. There are a lot of retainers, consultants. From the tax perspective, the salary, the contracts are negotiated with the employees, and to give them the benefit so that they get the benefit, so the TDS is deducted only 10% as against 30% deduction. Many of the people are also appointed on retainer and consultant. So even that data is not available.
I want to come to the,
so when we have to look
one
at
second, Hitesh. Okay, I'm done with jobs. I am done with jobs. Just give me a minute. We are done with jobs. Let's not go back and flog the dead horse once again. Let's talk about the politics of this interview, the polity that was spoken about. And Sanjeev Srivastava, I'll come to you on this. When it comes to mob lynching, the Prime Minister has condemned these acts and put the onus on states to crack down. Why is it then that despite all these statements, incidents of mob lynching continue unabated in BJP-ruled states? One will wonder, one will ask. Sanjeev Srivastava.
Well, Supriya. See, at least I welcome his statement, even if there can be a follow-up question like you have just asked. But at least that statement was welcome, and it was quite categorical. And the only sad part of it is that when these things have been happening with such regularity, the mob lynching, the cow vigilantism, the Prime Minister, one expects him to be more proactive and speak more often, but der aayat, durast aayat. Having said that, now the issue of mob lynching, everybody knows in this country that the people involved in lynching, the Gaurakshaks of the world, especially in BJP ruled states, they will be treated with kid gloves by the government. There is a soft peddling on the issue. What happened latest in Rajasthan in near Alwar with Rakbar Khan is a clear example how police itself was not proactive, in fact delayed taking him to the hospital, and he died, and they were part of the mob in some ways. So, and there is a clear sense of communal atmosphere in the country which is building up and which is going to build up further, the fear is, as we head towards the next round of assembly elections later this year.
Okay.
But despite all this, the Prime Minister's unequivocal condemnation
should be welcome.
And is welcome. Okay. I actually quite like the number of statements he made, and I don't want to point out all the issues which he did not address or things like NPA. See, a lot of things the UPA has no business to even raise their voice.
Absolutely,
things like
Sanjeev.
NPA,
I take that point, Sanjeev.
Really a problem. Corruption, big ticket corruption is a problem, is a legacy issue which has been left by the UPA. Absolutely.
I take that point. Yogendra, let's talk about NRC, and that's a burning issue. You've written and spoken a lot about it, and I'm curious to see your comments on what the Prime Minister has said. Some would argue that on this contentious burning issue, the Prime Minister took the attack to the opposition, blaming them for not having faith in a Supreme Court monitored citizenship drive. So, he's basically reminded people that this is a Supreme Court monitored effort, and so it's, you keep criticizing the Supreme Court Chief Justice. This is a Supreme Court monitored citizenship drive. The Congress party signed the accord and also kickstarted the NRC process. So, today, has it become an issue of vote bank politics, sir?
One quick thing, if you allow me, on lynching. This is not for the first time that the Prime Minister has said it. He's said it several times. And you do not expect a Prime Minister in a written official interview to get himself asked the question about lynching and then say, no, it's all right. Of course, you don't expect things of that kind. What I would have expected from a serious Prime Minister would have been, number one, some symbolic action to begin with. Can he at least say that people who approve of lynching are people he would personally not follow on his Facebook, on his Twitter? Two, can he simply walk to one of these victims' house and say, I'm with you, you are people of this country, I'm your Prime Minister, I shall protect you, like Obama did in some of these instances. Why can't the Prime Minister do so? Be as it may, NRC, what the Prime Minister has said is actually entirely true. And factually, there is nothing wrong with what he has said, namely that there is a real problem of the immigration from Bangladesh, that much of the opposition and most political parties, I should actually add, including the BJP in Assam, have been evading these questions. Congress has been evading because Congress has vote bank of Muslim minorities there. BJP has been evading because, as everyone in the world knows, BJP is used to be a party of the Bengali Hindus. Many of them were migrants from Bangladesh. So the entire political spectrum of Assam has avoided this issue. Supreme Court had to take it up in a very roughshod manner, and now that it is happening, to say that this is BJP's invention is factually not true. The real issue the Prime Minister did not touch, but I don't expect him, and that's why you need follow-up questions. The real issue he did not touch was whether on the ground implementation, which may be monitored by the Supreme Court, but which is effectively has to be done by the state bureaucracy, is there a systematic discrimination against the Muslims? That is the allegation, that is the concern, which needs to be responded to. Prime Minister did not say a word about it. And also the Prime Minister did not, as I mentioned, acknowledge the fact that his own Chief Minister came to Delhi to dissuade the Home Minister of India. Please don't go ahead with NRC, my vote bank is under threat. This is a reality. Of course, the Prime Minister cannot acknowledge these things. And that's why I wanted people like you to have some follow-up questions on these things.
Point. We didn't get the interview, we would have had the follow-up if we did. But let me take this across to Hitesh Jain. Hitesh, I am coming to you. Hitesh, that's exactly the point I'm coming to you. I want you to respond to the points that Mr. Yadav has raised, but I also want you to touch upon one more statement of the Prime Minister where he says there is no place for politics when it comes to national interest. But given the timing of this entire exercise, hasn't the BJP used this as a ploy to polarize voters?
Supriya, I think on the point of lynching, we have a very selective memory and selective amnesia. In West Bengal, during the Panchayat election, the whole state was lynched and the evidence was there on the channel. The evidence was acknowledged before the Supreme Court, and all these people, everybody's eyes were closed. Day before yesterday, we had a rally where Amit Shah had come to, our president had come to address the party workers. The stones and everything were thrown, people were beaten up and all. So this is not a lynching. Now we are all aware that who called the agitations in the name of Maratha and what kind of rioting happened, that is not a lynching. We know what the Dalit protest happened, what happened on the lynching issues, that is not a lynching. We know what is happening in Kerala. We know what is happening in Karnataka. That according to them is not a lynching. So nobody speaks on that issue. So it's fine. People conveniently forget everything and they have no follow-up questions on all these things. Second, let me complete. On the corruption issue, Mr. Yogendra Yadav for 5 years when he was asking, he has no follow-up questions on the corruption issue and what is happening on the fallout of the
NRC question.
Issue. Now the third part which we have to see on the NRC also.
No, Hitesh, answer my question. NRC.
When you specify Mr. Yogendra
I may be allowed to respond.
Tries to name the community.
Because he's been naming me, I may be allowed to respond.
Yes.
So when people from a particular community.
Sure.
When people from a particular community are arrested, then people say they do not have a religion. And here on the debate, you try to bring, oh, this is a religion, that is a religion. According to me, in the lynching or any other issues are happening, at the end of the day, he is a citizen. His religion is not important. Everyone is facing, I mean, all the problems are concerned. How has this got to do with the religion?
Respond to the question on NRC, sir. You haven't responded to that question, Hitesh Jain.
I may be.
We'll come to you, Mr. Yadav, once Hitesh responds on the points that were raised on NRC. Yes, Hitesh, please quickly.
Now on NRC, if you will see, it is a Supreme Court undertaken exercise. Now Mr. Yogendra Yadav calls that is a roughshod the manner in which Supreme Court. Now I am not here to comment on how Supreme Court is taking. Now Congress's own accord, nobody has a follow-up question. 72, 84, they agreed for the creation of NRC. Mamata Banerjee, we all saw the visuals of 2005. What was her view on the illegal immigrants? People are trying to confuse between the exercise of NRC and illegal immigrant issue. According to me, these are two different issues. One should not confuse. As far as illegal immigrants are concerned or illegal citizens are concerned, a national interest should be put and we should have a clear policy to deal with the illegal immigrant and illegal citizen. As far as NRC is concerned, the process should be followed properly. Everybody should be given an opportunity.
Hitesh, I don't have too much time. Yogendra Yadav, quick rebuttal from you and then I'm coming to you, Anand Ranganathan. Yogendra Yadav, quick rebuttal from you.
Since Hitesh has a particular interest in my locus standi, I know it's not worth noticing, but would he care to notice what I said about Mamata Banerjee in public, not once, several times, on what was happening in Panchayat elections, on what was my locus standi when Congress was doing corruption? Sir, I do not know what you were doing, but at that time I was on the street protesting against Congress corruption. I don't know how much price you paid. I can tell you how much price I paid for protesting against Congress's corruptions. So would you please answer the question instead of getting into these silly things? And on NRC, please answer two questions. Why is it that Mr. Sonowal came to Delhi to persuade Mr. Rajnath Singh to go slow? Why is it that your government tried to go slow on NRC and the Supreme Court had to indict it twice to say stop delaying NRC? And number three, if you are against illegal immigrants, why are you trying to bring a law that distinguishes between Hindu immigrant and a Muslim immigrant?
Well, two things. As far as the NRC is concerned, we know what happened in the hearing before the Supreme Court, how Supreme Court hauled up before those officers by going to the public. It was not the government who went to the public, it was those people who were undertaking the exercise of NRC. They were hauled up, including the fact that the Supreme Court said that we will have to take the action of contempt for over-speaking and overstepping the line. This was the action not taken by the government.
Please get your facts right. I'm speaking of 3 months before that.
Allow me to interrupt you. I have more ground to cover and 3 other panelists on the show. Allow me to interrupt you. I don't want this debate to be hijacked by the NRC issue. Anand Ranganathan on Rafale. Has the Prime Minister managed to conclusively and convincingly put the controversy to rest, or do you still believe there are questions that need to be answered by the government and the Prime Minister?
Yeah, can I just first quickly come in on the lynching? I think that's very important. Now, the Prime Minister unequivocally condemned lynching. What he should have added was that I condemn all lynchings. Now, the thing is, there is this rampant propaganda and selectivity, and I'm afraid much of it is also perpetrated by people like Professor Yogendra Yadav, who is actually a politician. The problem is there have been more than 100 attacks by Muslim mobs on Hindus, Dalits and non-Dalits, more than 36 attacks on Dalits, attempted lynchings, arson, murder, just this past year. Now, how many of these have been raised by Mr. Yogendra Yadav? I distinctly remember when he was part of Aam Aadmi Party in 2014-15, he was the one flaring up the church under attack fable. What happened to that? He's never apologized for it. All that propaganda came to nothing. So let's not be
move away from lynching and
all
talk about
lynchings
Rafale,
are
please.
But let's not just prop up one kind
What
of
are
lynching.
you inventing,
I think that's
sir?
completely wrong, and I think that is where Mr. Modi should have added that all. Hello. Mr.
Go
Yadav,
ahead,
you
we
want
can
me
hear
to
you.
read out
Go
the
ahead.
100
Please put
documented
any one evidence
cases
in the
of
public
Muslim
domain
law
for what you are
attacking
saying.
Hindus, Dalits and non-Dalits, please. I come with my facts. The problem is the BJP,
I thought the
which is
question
probably
was
a
on
billion-dollar
Rafale.
organization,
Seems to have
mentioned,
interest in my biography.
Bengal and all that. You should have
Please
actually
put that in
mentioned
public
concrete
domain.
incidents. I have a list of concrete incidents where you've been completely
Okay,
silent.
I don't think I'm getting an answer
You know
on
about
Rafale.
Farooq, you know about Bano, you've been
Anand
silent on them.
Ranganathan,
Why?
you have 20 seconds. Anand Ranganathan.
Let's not be selective.
Anand Ranganathan, you have 20 seconds to answer the question that Sandeep asked you, which is on, no, Anand Ranganathan, you have 20 seconds to answer the question that Sandeep asked you, which is on Rafale. Are you convinced? Is the controversy put to rest with the Prime Minister's statement? That's the question you've been asked. Please answer that first.
No, it hasn't, because the Prime Minister, yet again, including the BJP, has not answered it as well as some of the independent defense experts like Mr. Abhijit Iyer Mitra has. And this is a real shame. So this will be raked up again and again. And as the Congress mouthpiece said, is this Narendra Modi's Bofors? So it probably might be.
Okay, hold that thought, because I'm going to go across to Gaurav Vallabh. And Gaurav Vallabh, let's switch to 2019. The Prime Minister has rubbished the Mahagathbandhan and also talks of allies that were deserting the NDA by referring to the no confidence motion and the election of the Deputy Chairman of the Rajya Sabha. You know, both of those issues where the opposition was, you know, completely trounced. Has the BJP taken the sting out of the opposition attack really? Gaurav Vallabh.
One by one, Supriya. First on lynching, a small statement. The BJP spokesperson gave an example of Bengal. Had any minister of Bengal...
Gaurav Vallabh, no. Gaurav Vallabh, no. Gaurav Vallabh, lynching is done with. I'm asking you a question of Mahagathbandhan. We can't have everybody talk on lynching, because that's not something that we want to any longer talk about. It should not happen for any community. Unequivocally, we say that, forget about anybody else. You answer the question I've asked you on Mahagathbandhan. Has the sting been taken out of the opposition's Mahagathbandhan idea? Very quickly, please.
Supriya, you have to give me 2 minutes. Supriya, you have to give me 2 minutes. Then what I
can't let you talk on lynching. I can't let you talk on lynching.
Are not in sync. And second...
Okay, that's
then
done
I
on
am
lynching,
coming
move
to
on.
NRC.
Gaurav Vallabh, answer the question, Mahagathbandhan.
To speak on NRC?
Yeah. No, I am giving you an opportunity
NRC,
to
are
answer
you
a very
not going to
specific
allow
question
me?
I've asked of you.
Then,
we can't have
Supriya,
everybody
I want...
No, I can't. I'm asking you on
I will
Mahagathbandhan.
answer, but how... Supriya, how... I am not rhetoric. I am saying NRC is National Register of Citizenship. They had converted into National Register of Confusion. Why selectively? I am just giving one data. 2005 to 13, 88,000 Bangladeshi foreigners were deported. From 14 till date, only 1,800 foreigners were deported.
I have asked you a question, Mahagathbandhan. If you now want to answer that, I'll have to move on. Gaurav Vallabh.
Ma'am,
yes, answer the question, Mahagathbandhan.
You have to give. I am answering that. And the third question which you raised on Mahagathbandhan, I am saying, Prime Minister mentioned about no confidence motion. Had he reacted anything on any question asked by Rahul Gandhi ji while discussing on no confidence motion? And whatever he want to say, he can say. But we like-minded parties are together, and we are going to fight for a cause of agriculturists, for farmers, for young people who are not getting employment, for women and Dalits. So whomsoever is like-minded parties, if we are coming together, why Prime Minister is worried on that?
Okay, I take that point. Sanjeev Srivastava, the Prime Minister exudes confidence on winning more seats than in 2014. Where will they come from, given the setbacks that we've seen in the UP by-polls? The BJP is maxed out North India, UP, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh. Where can it break new ground?
Yeah, his claim does defies logic and smacks of some kind of bravado. I think the Prime Minister's best case scenario is what he has projected, that the opposition bunch is a bunch of opportunistic parties coming together with a one-point agenda of defeating Narendra Modi and BJP. It is something what Mrs. Gandhi did in 1977 and then also when she came back in 1980. So, that's nothing new. The issue is whether can Mr. Narendra Modi be a victorious Indira Gandhi of 1980 in this election, because see, there is this Hindutva subtext which the BJP will benefit from. The bigger issue is if all the regional parties come together, will the caste and Jatigat Samikaran subtext, will that overpower the Hindutva subtext? That will be the deciding factor, at least in North India. And there is no doubt in a lot of, especially in middle class, urban middle class, there will be skepticism about this opposition alliance, because see, whatever one may say, whatever may be wrong with Modi, and there are a lot of problems with the BJP, but this photo album of opposition leaders from Akhilesh to Mayawati, from Mamta to whoever regional party leader, that is also not very confidence inspiring for a lot of people. But if, like Karan Thapar I think has written yesterday in one of his columns, and a lot of people also say that if the opposition cobbles together alliances keeping each state in mind, so if there are alliances in half a dozen to 10 states just on state based equations, and if the Congress is willing to make more sacrifices, i.e. concede more seats to partners, then the opposition is very much in with a chance, and Mr. Modi may be in for a rude surprise.
Okay, I take that point.
I think 2019 is still very much open.
Okay, 2019 is still very much open. This, this confidence is sort of misplaced, says Sanjay Srivastava. I don't have much time. I'm coming to you, Hitesh, and then last word to Yogendra Yadav. Hitesh, and the Prime Minister says he won't tweak policies to win votes. Does that mean there won't be any populist moves in the run-up to general elections? We are paranoid about the fact that the government will turn populist in the run-up to general elections. He says he won't. Is that a clear, clear statement of intent?
Prime Minister also said in his interview that our campaign is focusing and our mandate was development, and we are going to ask for development and more development and development at rapid pace. India has an aspirational Indian, the large numbers of aspirational Indians are there. We have come on the mandate of this aspirational Indians, and we are committed for the development to the entire nation. So when we are speaking about the development, we are only going to speak about development, development and development. And we are very confident that when we speak the language of development, we are going to able to get a better mandate than 2014.
Okay, very quickly then, since you're talking so much about development, Yogendra Yadav will let you have the last word on the show. The Prime Minister says 2019 campaign will be all about development, fast development and development for all. Considering the extent of political polarization that we are seeing in Indian polity, are you someone who's going to take that comment at face value?
Nothing in this interview should be taken at face value. In fact, nothing in most interviews should be taken at face value. When I first read the interview, my first sense was, oh, it's publicity and platitudes and nothing else. But actually, if you read it very carefully and read politics into that interview, what you see is the mind of a man who's anxious, who knows that something has gone wrong with the script, who's desperately trying to correct it, who knows what should never be talked about, demonetization, farmer suicide, no questions on that, who knows what should be just alluded to but not quite answered, Rafale. Actually, the answer is no answer. So we have beginning of an anxious government. What would that anxiety produce? We do not know. If it produces an election where development is the
Yadav, we will hear all
nothing
this
can be
thing in
better
the
for the
political
country.
hustling, and we will see who the citizens believe you or believe us.
Okay.
In the political hustling, we will get the answer.
All right.
The citizen believe your life.
On that note, okay, Hitesh Jain, no need to get so aggressive, sir. No need to get so aggressive. We are completely done with time here, but thank you very, very much. Yogendra Yadav, Hitesh Jain, Gaurav Vallabh, Sanjeev Srivastava and Anand Ranganathan for joining us in this edition of the India Development Debate. You put politicians in a room, you try and discuss the Prime Minister's interview, which is always going to be a political hot boiler of sorts. Thanks very much for this fiery exchange. मैं कहती हूँ गरीबी हटाओ, वो कहते हैं इंदिरा हटाओ. That is how Indira Gandhi won the election, by making it about her versus the rest. A lot like what the Prime Minister seems to be doing right now in 2019. But is India of 2019 the same as India of 1971? Let's just wait and watch.
Indeed. And if the 2019 election is going to be all about development, frankly, we couldn't welcome it more. And let's hope all political parties put the spotlight on development and don't fall into any other trap. We'll wait and watch. Thanks for being with us on this special edition of the India Development Debate. Good night.